I got to call Denis Phillips now.
Let's see if he answers.
Let's see if he answers this time. All right, calling Denis Phillips, Mr. Suspenders, ABC Action News chief meteorologist. Will he pick up? He said he was going to set an alarm today.
I said it.
And he did set the alarm. Denis Phillips live.
What's going on?
Guess what? Yesterday we had Denis Phillips voicemail.
Yeah, I mean, Dennis, you have no idea how close you were to a knock on the door from the sheriff's office.
Yesterday we had DPVM, Denis Phillips voicemail.
Live.
Got all these messages. Those guys, sheriff's going to come knock on your door because they're doing a wellness check on you. I'm like, you should. Well, actually, a lot of people are like, you don't sleep, do you? I try to actually before hurricane season, but no, I went to bed at 5:45, and then 8:30 I slept right through the alarm. My apologies.
Yeah,
I saw the message at like 9:45.
Yeah, I know.
And he's like, yeah, you weren't there when we called. Like, oh man.
Yeah. So, yesterday we were trying to figure out what happened to Denis. And we suggested maybe we need to call the sheriff's office to kick in your door to do a wellness check. And you said people actually mentioned this on your Facebook?
All over the place. Yeah.
It's great.
We should have done
I had DPL last night, and everybody, are you okay? I'm like, why? Yeah, well, you didn't pick up at 8:30. I was freaking sleeping, okay?
And then, this is really morbid, but we're like, what if Denis was testing out his generator on the first day of hurricane season in his living room,
Yeah, I don't think I would do that.
Yeah.
And good reminder, folks, for we got lots of new people in the area.
Yep.
And don't use your generator inside your house or your garage.
Never. And listen, even during hurricane season, if the power's out, don't even have your generator near a window where the carbon monoxide fumes could be sucked into your house. You keep it away in a well-ventilated area. Anyway, Dennis, I thought it would be a good thing to have you on yesterday, but today's good enough. Sunday, June 1 was the start of hurricane season, and yesterday was our first broadcast day after the start. So, Dennis, we're here. The season's begun. This, I believe, is now the fourth year in a row that we do not have a named storm prior to hurricane season or right at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing magical about June 1.
Yeah.
It can happen any time, right? I mean, it's just there was talk 8-9 years ago when we had one after another in May that they were going to move the season to the middle of June. Middle of May. It started on May 15th. But again, who cares? I mean, does it really? Again, there's not anybody out there. They shouldn't be thinking, oh, okay, now it's June 1st. Now we can get a storm. We can get a storm anytime. It has nothing to do with the calendar. And I've been on a rant the last couple of days about the long range posting of the GFS. Trying to predict,
Explain this, because you put up a graphic with all the little different colors, and explain the GFS model and what you were ranting about.
So the GFS is the American model, and it is notorious for trying to spin up hurricanes in the 12 to 14-day range. And the problem I have with it, not with the model itself, because that's just a bias, something that we know. So, the meteorologists who are analyzing the data look at that and like, well, we know that's not going to happen the overwhelming majority of the time because that's a bias that model has. The models it's not a person that does it. I'm not slamming a person. It's just a math problem. That's all it is. So the GFS has a problem spinning up storms. And how many, you say? All right, well, last year it predicted 462 named storms from the beginning of hurricane season to Christmas Eve.
What?
Yeah. 462. We had 18. So anybody who takes those GFS models 12 days out, throws it on social media and says, whoa, we got to watch out. We got to be careful because look at what's going to happen in 12 days. It's Chicken Little syndrome. That's what scares me, because people are going to see that. And, it shows up on your feed. I mean, that. You'll be scrolling, and you'll see all these things that pop up. And eventually they're going to say, well, and we get it all the time anyway. I mean, come on, let's weather people. They're never right anyway.
Dennis, the last thing I want to ask you is, hey, what do you think about this season? I'm not going to be like everyone else, and I'm not going to say, hey, what's your prediction? We know that they've predicted 19 named storms. All it takes is one. I think people are on edge, or we're a bit gun shy, because we got whacked with two doozies last year. And really, for the bulk of the Tampa Bay area, those were the biggest events in 3 years?
Yeah. I mean, we had this discussion. It was devastating. Helene was storm surge. Milton was more rainfall and wind. So the combination of the two storms, we got all three major impacts that you can get with a hurricane. But the thing that I've been telling people, and it's hard to believe, that 7-foot surge that a lot of folks got with Helene was from a storm that was over 100 miles offshore.
Yeah.
It did not make landfall in the Bay Area, nowhere close to us. So we got all that water with the storm so far off. Imagine what would happen if it had actually made landfall in our area. And with Milton, you can make the argument, while it was a minimal Cat 3 when it hit, is Siesta Key part of the Bay Area? I don't know. Is it? It's
we had the same discussion, and we had this discussion on the air, in the follow-up. I still consider Sarasota part of the Tampa Bay area. That's me. I've been here since 1994, and yes, I consider Sarasota, Bradenton part of the Tampa Bay area because we've had massive listenership, and we still continue to have lots of listeners in Sarasota, Bradenton. I consider them part of the metro.
But Sarasota is like the border. Like Venice seems too far.
Yeah, I mean, again, it doesn't really matter. I mean, that's just a thing that, like a broad brush. Oh, the Bay Area. When you say, the Bay Area hasn't been hit directly by a major hurricane in 104 years now. I mean, you can make the argument both ways. I mean, I don't disagree with you. Sarasota County is part of our DMA. Siesta Key is in Sarasota County, so, okay, technically it's part of it. But I know there's a lot of people who say Sarasota is not the Tampa Bay area. So, anyway, the point is, you and I will remember, with Milton, we were watching that thing moving in from the south, and you were out getting all your sandbags and worrying that you were going to get a 1-2 punch, after Helene, and that made that landfall in Siesta Key. So we had an offshore flow. All the water moved out of the bay as opposed to moving into the bay. So, we got lucky in terms of surge with Milton. But at the end of the day, like you said, look, I mean, there can be 30 named storms out in the ocean. If they stay out in the ocean, nobody cares and doesn't bother anybody. So I will tell you, the eastern Atlantic, where a lot of the storms that impact the east part of the U.S., is really chilly right now. The water, relatively speaking, is chilly. Put it that way. It's about a couple of degrees below average temperature-wise.
But also we have the Sahara dust. And
Yep.
I know that Sahara dust reduces air quality, but I got to be honest, I wouldn't mind having some Sahara dust through the entire hurricane season to try to thwart development.
Well, you remember last year we had it through July. I mean, we had nothing. We had no named storms in July last year. It was really, really quiet, and even into August, it didn't get cranking until the end of August, and then September and October were crazy. So
yeah, then it was HBL. You know what HBL stands for, right? Hell breaks loose.
Yeah,
Yep.
It did. Yeah, and the Western Caribbean is still very warm. The Eastern Gulf is really warm. So here's the thing to remember: that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get more storms develop in these areas, because the storms form in a lot of different reasons more than just warm water. But what all that warm water does mean, that if something does form in that area, it's going to blow up more than likely because it's tapping so much warm water.
So leave us with a thought, Dennis, because, again, I don't want to be that guy. Dennis, what are your predictions for the Tampa Bay area? So I'm not going to say that, but what thoughts do you want to leave us with?
I mean, even if you did, I just wouldn't have the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody who knows how that year is going to play out in terms of where the storms are going to go. We have a pretty good idea. And by the way, NOAA, even in their prediction, they go, 14 to 19 or something like that. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful, but anybody can do that. That's a 5-storm swing.
Yeah.
The normal is 14.7. So if you think it's going to be a little bit above average, I just think that forecast is useless. I don't think it does anybody any good. And sometimes I think it gives you either too much stress, and then if you don't get anything, then next year you're not going to prepare, or vice versa. Right. If you think it's going to be a quiet year, then you don't prepare as much as you should. I think at the end of the day, MJ, with the warm water setting up, we're not in an El Nino, we're in more of a neutral phase. I think the Western Caribbean and the Gulf is going to get their share of hurricanes again this year.
Yeah.
I do. But the Gulf is a big body of water. Maybe it's more Texas or Louisiana this year. But I think anybody who thinks, well, we had ours last year, so we don't have anything to worry about for another 100 years. I've been hearing that from some people. Yeah, I just don't think that's reality anymore. I really.
Hey, well, I don't want this to be political, and if you want to avoid this 100%, please just say I don't want to answer it. But you know,
know what you're going to ask me.
We've had a lot of government cuts, and we've heard about NOAA and the National Weather Service, being hit. Is that a concern?
It isn't to me. I'll tell you why. I mean, if you're looking at the overall forecasting ability to be able to forecast from Sioux Falls to Rapid City to wherever, then there will be some areas based on the current thinking and the way things have played out that might have some issues with staffing or with data. I believe and I might be wrong. I'm not privy to any more information than you or anybody else is, but I believe in my heart of hearts when a storm threatens any area, the NHC and the local weather services will be all over that, collecting data and staffing as they always do. I truly, truly believe that. And it isn't. I don't think it's just wishful thinking. I know how the Mets who work at the Weather Service really take a ton of pride in what they do and in protecting people. And if it means, it's just like local weather teams. If there's a hurricane coming, we work for 50, 60 straight hours because that's what the expectations are, and that's what we do. And I have no doubt the Weather Service will do the exact same thing. Might there be times when it's quiet or maybe staffing is lower? Maybe that's a thing. But I have no doubt in my mind if a storm's coming, they'll call in everybody, and everybody will be doing what they need to do to get that information out there. I believe that, and I just don't think I'm wrong on that.
Dennis Phillips live on the MJ Morning Show. Of course, Dennis Phillips, his whole team at ABC Action News, our news and weather partner here at our Beasley stations, including the MJ Morning Show here on 104.7 FM Q105. Dennis, I'm hoping this is the last time we talk to you for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's not going to be. We both know that.
All right. But I'm hoping. Dennis, thank you. I appreciate you coming on, and I'm glad that you were available this morning.
Thanks, guys. See you. Have a good one.
All right, bye-bye.
Go back to bed.
All right, Dennis Phillips, who said he did wake up this morning with this morning's alarm. Yesterday, he did not.
You like the video? If so, go ahead and click like, share, subscribe, and get more.